Welcome to the International Childbirth Initiative webinar series on the 12 steps to safe and respectful mother-baby-family maternity care. My name is Michelle Scartharian, and I'm the Executive Director of the International Childbirth Initiative. Today's webinar will cover Step 3, routinely provide mother-baby-family maternity care. For those of you who are new, the International Childbirth Initiative is an implementation and quality improvement process that strives to achieve the 12 steps for safe and respectful mother-baby-family maternity care through a self-evaluation and reflective process conducted at the facility level. ICI is also a global resource network of facilities who strive to share their learning and improve the provision of care. ICI was created through the joint effort of the International Federation of Gynecology and Obstetrics and the International Mother-Baby Childbirth Organization, and it now includes over 30 partner organizations. We are open to all birthing facilities who are willing to commit to delivering safe and respectful mother-baby-family maternity care. Our first speaker today is Sue Downe from the International Mother-Baby Childbirth Organization. IMBCO's mission is to call global attention to the importance of the quality of the mother's birth experience and its impact on the outcome, while drawing attention to the scientific evidence showing the benefits of mother-baby-centered care. Sue is a member both of IMBCO and the Executive Committee of the International Childbirth Initiative. She spent 15 years working as a clinical and research midwife. In 2001, she joined the University of Central Lancashire in the UK, where she is now the Professor of Midwifery Studies. Her main research focus is the nature of and cultures around normal birth. She has been a member of the technical working group of the World Health Organization's antenatal, interpartum, postpartum, and optimizing cesarean section guidelines. Our second speaker today is Ann Yates, the head of midwifery at the International Confederation of Midwives. ICM envisions a world where every childbearing woman has access to a midwife's care for herself and her newborn. Prior to joining ICM, Ann worked clinically and as a midwifery lecturer in Papua New Guinea. She's worked for over 40 years in both high and low income settings, and she's a former president of the New Zealand College of Midwives. She is also the lead on the development and publication of the Respect Toolkit, which is a free resource produced by ICM to train healthcare workers on respectful care. Our final presenters today are from the Fernandez Hospital Foundation. The foundation grew out of the STORK Home Clinic, founded in 1948 as a 2-bed maternity service. It has grown through the years into its current form, a 320-bed nonprofit hospital where more than 10,000 babies are born annually. Fernandez Foundation provides education, advocacy, and low-cost, respectful, and equitable care in their community in Hyderabad, India. With us today is Dr. Evita Fernandez, a renowned obstetrician and the chairperson of the Fernandez Foundation. She is a fellow of the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and she strongly believes in the need to empower women to make choices, especially with regard to issues surrounding birth. Indrajit Kaur is the Director of Midwifery at Fernandez Hospitals. She has held several roles at the National Health Service in the UK, and she successfully launched the world's first maternity clinic in the Royal London Hospital to support women who experience sexual violence. So we have this fantastic team who are with us today to present Step 3, routinely provide mother-baby-family maternity care. So I will now hand this over to our first presenter, Sue Downe.
Thank you very much, Michelle, and I'm very happy to be presenting sections of this slide deck to you all today, along with my colleagues who are presenting with me, Ann Yates, Evita, Fernandez, and Kaur. So I'm just starting off with the first section. Clearly, we're discussing Step 3, which is to routinely provide mother-baby-family maternity care, and we'll be unpacking what that means as we go through. Next slide, please. So the underlying philosophy of this is value-based family-centered care. And as you can see, it was inspired by a particular set of guidelines that are based in Canada. We're based in Canada and have been updated in this year, 2021. But of course, there are many other approaches to family-centered care that are also relevant to this particular step. Next slide, please. So the key documents are the family-centered care one from the Institute for Patient and Family-Centered Care. Next one. Person-centered care framework for reproductive health equity. So this is taking the equity lens, the philosophy and model of midwifery care that Anne will be addressing. And then next one, please. And the scope of midwifery practice and quality maternal and newborn health, the QMNC or the QMNH framework that's come from the Lancet series. Next one, please. So the core focus is the mother, baby, and the family. Now, there are other initiatives that talk about mother-baby friendly care, but this particular initiative incorporates the family into that mix. It's a kind of primary care-centered, community-based initiative, as well as building in the elements that occur during maternity care in hospital. Next one, please. So it's a complex, multidimensional, dynamic model. It's a model that isn't just fixed. Things happen during pregnancy, labor, birth, and the postnatal period between the mother, the baby, and the family that constantly change and shift. So this particular step and the overall model that we're engaged with accentuates and recognizes that dynamic shift that's happening and the interconnectedness between all of the players, all of the agents that are involved, and addressing the physical, emotional, psychosocial, and spiritual needs of the whole unit, mother-baby family. Next, please. So step 3, routinely provide this kind of care, this kind of mother-baby family care. And I particularly like this photograph, as you can see, with thanks to Zebra Midwives from Bulgaria, because it just shows that interconnectivity, not just with the mother, baby, and the family, but also with those providing care, in this case, the midwives, but also, as you'll hear later, obstetricians and others, doulas and others that are engaged in providing this kind of care. Next slide, please. So there are 2 elements that are integrated here. There's the mother-baby family value-based notion that we've looked at that are part of the previous documents that underpin this whole initiative. And then the midwifery, what's called the midwifery philosophy and scope of practice. Now that isn't necessarily just what's done by midwives. Again, we'll hear more about this later, but midwives tend to be the professional group, at least, that embodies most directly what this philosophy is about. Next one, please. So the components, as you've already heard, the integration of the value and the partnership piece. The notion of this being grounded in evidence-based practice is critical. So we're not saying here that every single woman must have every single thing that is revealed by research, because in some cases that research is based on population evidence, and where individuals make decisions that are not in line with that population evidence, we need to honour those decisions. But it is saying that we should always be having an eye to or an understanding of what is evidence-based practice. So the service as a whole should be designed on the basis of evidence-based practice, while integrating into that the individual choices and needs of the mother, baby, and the family. Next one, please. So this kind of unpacks what I've just said, really, that health needs and expectations are also part of what is provided. So what is important to women culturally and spiritually, as well as physically, and to their families and to birthing people in these situations, must be balanced with what the evidence is. So those 2 things come together in a kind of perfect balance for the benefit of the mother-baby family unit. And clinical health outcomes are clearly important. They're very important that mother and baby are safe and secure in the process of their maternity episode, but actually outcomes are also, as we've said before, spiritual, psychological, and emotional, as well as merely clinical. And cost effectiveness is critical, but it must be, we should never sacrifice the quality of care to a cost effectiveness managerial kind of approach. Next one, please. So this is text from the actual step 3 as written. So care should be based on what women want during the childbirth continuum, as I've just kind of alluded to. That we should look towards optimizing the physiological, biopsychosocial processes of childbirth, so that by and large, most women around the world would prefer to labour and give birth, or grow their babies and labour and give birth to their babies physiologically as far as they can, and to feed their babies, to breastfeed their babies as far as they can. Some women and birthing people will make different choices, but generally speaking, that's what most women want, and that's what most women and birthing people can achieve. And this is where the midwifery philosophy and scope of practice comes in, because this is absolutely fundamental to the midwifery philosophy and scope of practice. And Anne will say a bit more about this. Next one, please. So this should be done within a system that ensures multidisciplinary collaboration. So this cannot be done by one particular professional group, taking one particular line or one particular philosophical approach. It has to be something which is seamless amongst the whole multidisciplinary team, each individual that the woman is likely to encounter in her journey through from the beginning to the end of her maternity episode. And it has to engage with communication and care for women and newborns across all of the professional groups that are involved, and the lay groups that are involved too, the supporting people. Next one, please. And as well as optimizing normal physiological, biophysiological, psychosocial processes, we have to make sure that all of these values are also encompassed in those who have risks or complications as well. Next one, please. So this must be available at all levels of care and in any setting. So hospital, tertiary level, lower level, community level, wherever care is provided, and skilled health workers with the full scope of competencies, or the team that combines competencies, are also essential in order to enable this model of care to be provided. Next one, please. So I'm going to hand over to Anne now to discuss the midwifery scope of practice and those elements that are relevant to the ICM here.
Thank you very much, Sue. Well, first of all, I'm going to talk about what a midwife is, and because it's not always clear, and as a lot of people carry the title of midwife without having met the competencies that ICM believes a midwife should have. So a midwife is a person who's successfully completed a midwifery education program that is based on our ICM essential competencies for midwifery practice, and that there's a framework for midwifery education that midwife is also legally licensed to practice midwifery. So midwife is recognised as a responsible and accountable health professional, and she works in partnership with women to give necessary support and advice during the pregnancy, labour and postpartum period. She can conduct births on her own responsibility, and she can provide care for a newborn and an infant. And this care also encompasses preventative measures. It promotes the normal birth philosophy and the detection of complications of mother and child. And of course, the midwife needs to be able to access medical care and other appropriate assistance when there are emergencies. So a midwife can practice in any setting, including the home, community, hospitals, clinics, or health units. Midwives need to be competent to practice and to be able to demonstrate ongoing competency. This is the end point for a midwifery education program. And ICM has developed essential competencies for midwifery practice based on global standards. These are the knowledge, skills, and behaviours required by any person who uses the designation of the word midwife. They're a set of guiding documents to ensure that women and birthing people are safe in the hands of a midwife, and what ICM would expect for every midwife graduating a midwifery program. So ICM promotes a midwifery model of care that promotes respect for human dignity, compassion, and the promotion of human rights. We believe that pregnancy, labour and birth are fundamentally physiological processes, as Sue described, but that continuity of midwifery care models enable and promote better outcomes for women and greater satisfaction of care. This model works with women and birthing people themselves when they are when the women themselves are the decision makers, and that they work in partnership with a midwife and trust that in most situations, birth is a normal life event. Next slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. So midwifery philosophy is the bedrock of everything that midwives do. It defines a midwife, defines our core beliefs for our practice. We know, because we are an ancient profession, we have evolved to incorporate cultural and social traditions and knowledge, but it is underpinned by science and evidence. We understand that midwives hold knowledge that's not held by any other professional group. And our knowledge and skills are centred on the woman and a belief and deep understanding of birth physiology. Midwives know that when women are supported and provided with good, timely information, that they themselves will make the best choices for them and their families. Midwives work with others on the health team, and when it is clear that there needs to be additional support or an intervention, they must be able to access those others. We believe it is possible to have both a safe outcome and a satisfying one for the positive well-being of a mother and her baby. But midwives need more than philosophy. We need a professional framework so that midwives understand how the pieces of the puzzle fit together. Midwives need education to the global standards that I've outlined before. They need to have a clearly defined scope of practice and to have regulation. They need to have a license. They need to be organised and to share the same philosophy. So we encourage midwives to belong to associations who can advocate for an enabling environment, both for women and for midwives. ICM wants practice we want to support practice to the full scope of the profession, because that's the best care that women can get. Midwives need to be paid. We need to have a say in how maternity care is delivered, and we need to work in a way that always supports women and where we are accessible to women in their communities. Next slide, please. Midwives need to work in partnership with women and birthing people to define what services that they need in their culture and their community, and decide how these services are best configured. The ideal situation for any woman is to experience her entire childbirth year with a midwife who she can trust and relate to. And ideally, the midwife and the women are culturally similar. They're located near to one another, and they enter a negotiated partnership and a shared understanding. Care can occur in the woman's own home, in a community facility or hospital, or all of the above. And the midwife provides care in the context of a relationship where the woman makes the decisions about her care. It must always be supportive, respectful, individualised, and based on the values of the women using the service. So each mother-baby-family unit should be contextualised to the culture of that community. And this can only occur when there has been collaboration and dialogue about what women want. There needs to be an environment that encourages women to attend and to feel comfortable asking questions and to seek knowledge that she will then base her decisions on. Next slide, please. So lastly, healthcare providers in maternity are many. There are doctors, midwives, nurses, care assistants, and then we have doulas and others. Where all members of the team are respectful and that they embrace the wisdom and the knowledge and the role of each other, this is the best environment both to work in and to give birth in. It's important that the birth environment is absolutely free from drama and dissent about decision-making, and that each member of the team is valued. There needs to be mechanisms where the team can discuss and debate care provision, and always, always keeping the centre of care as the woman and her family as the most important consideration, because it is women who make the final decisions on the care that they receive. Now, lastly, I wish to say that there has been a lot published about the impact of midwifery care, not least of all the Lancet series, and more recently, the State of the World's Midwifery report. So the things that I have just talked about now, there is strong evidence, there is data to support this. So I know that by supporting mother, baby, family friendly facilities, we will go some way on the journey to make sure that women are empowered when they give birth. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. So I'm going to pick up the next couple of slides, and then I'm going to hand over to Evita, Fernandez and Kaur to discuss how this actually works in practice. So I'm just really, for a couple of slides, making reference to some of the key documents. So Anne has already talked about the Lancet series, and the issue here is how far the mother-baby-family friendly initiative fits with these documents. And you can see from this QMNC diagram here that the kinds of aspects we've been discussing so far about education, assessment, promotion of normal physiological processes, how care is organised, valued, respected, and the philosophy of care and the kind of care providers that are involved is very similar to that of the model that we're discussing today. So there's a definite fit with this particular framework. Next slide, please. Thank you, Michelle. There's also a fit with this WHO model that came out more or less the same time as the Lancet series. And again, the particular point of interest here is the match or the balance between what's provided and how the care is experienced. So it's balance between provision of care and experience of care being critical. And again, some of the similar aspects we've been discussing already come into play here. Next one, please. And finally, this is the person-centered framework for reproductive health equity that we've referred to before, which again has this notion of people at the center and the various aspects that we've been discussing around it. So recognizing that actually there's a rights-based agenda here, as well as there being an agenda of person-centered care and value-centered care, rights-based care is equally as important and should be paid attention to by any country or facility that's wanting to provide maternity care. And the mother-baby-family friendly model completely wraps up into that as well.
Thank you so much, Sue. So we will now move to Evita Fernandez from the Fernandez Foundation.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Sue and Anne, for that lovely introduction and for giving us the privilege of sharing with you our experience with midwifery philosophy. I have started with this feedback maternal satisfaction grade slide because I only felt it was important to know how over the years, women, when they gave their feedback, we just used a simple Likert scale with 8 questions. And you can see that mothers have been so happy with the midwifery care that has been offered, and excellent just is almost reaching 100%. But you need to know the background that this was introduced in a very strong obstetric-led environment. And what was the impact of this midwifery philosophy and care? We obstetricians had to change our thinking, our understanding of normal physiology, and change our childbirth practices. I'd like to mention just a few examples which may seem so basic to a midwife, but to us obstetricians, they were big steps. For example, delayed cord clamping was fine, skin to skin was fine, but then bringing that into the operation theater for every cesarean section, making sure the woman was given the opportunity to enjoy skin to skin in the theater and to have a midwife or a doula with her at the time, apart from her husband, made a big difference. We also realized that we should never, ever separate mother and baby because earlier, when the mother would be shifted into the post-operative room, the baby would be either with the family or somewhere else because the post-operative room was very cold. But now we've invested in embrace nests that keep babies warm so mothers and babies are never separated and the mother can start early breastfeeding in the post-operative recovery room. And this is because 99% of our cesareans, if needed, are done with epidural or spinal. General anesthesia is very rarely used. The midwifery philosophy has also taught us to listen to women, to actually discuss birth plans, that they are involved in decision-making. This has been a huge change in the way we practice. The use of hydrotherapy as a non-pharmacological method. And this is very important for you to realize because we were strongly epidural. Almost 70% of our women used epidural. But today with midwifery care, it's dropped to less than 30%. Now that's been a huge impact. May I have the next slide, please? We were able to offer water births all through the pandemic. The first 3 months, I think we were worried. We weren't sure if it was safe. There were conflicting reports. But as the data came in and we realized that water births were safe, then our midwives supported women with their choices. We also learned to listen to women's voices in terms of offering collaborative care, like previous cesarean women wanted a VBAC in water and wanted a water birth. And water births are purely midwifery controlled. Obstetricians are hopeless in this environment. But if we didn't work together, the mother wouldn't have felt comfortable. So we moved on to collaborative care. May I have the next slide, please? Now, this is one of my favorite slides because here you can see obstetricians, midwives, and a doula all working seamlessly to keep the woman and her baby at the center. And this, again, was something that we obstetricians learned to understand what woman-centered care was and the joy of working together and being, responsible as a team for helping this mother feel safe, respected, and that her choices were heard. Thank you. And now I'll give the mic on to my colleague, Kaur. She will talk about our experience in public health hospitals.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Michelle, Sue, and Evita. It is indeed a privilege to share this. If I could have the next slide, please, Michelle. And just to share the training, our training with the government hospitals and public institutions commenced in 2017. And the heart of the training was ensuring women-centered, respectful care. The midwives learned the philosophy of the midwifery model, learning to be with women and their families to enable them to understand the factors which influences birth, such as environment, ensuring a companion of choice in the birthing rooms, and these is set in public hospitals. Midwives learned to be competent and also autonomous when mothers were healthy. And caring for women and their newborn, demonstrated the knowledge and timely escalation when there's deviations from the norm, and working in collaboration with obstetricians when you're caring for women with medical complex needs. Women have been learned to birth in different positions. Traditionally, women in India are birthing on their backs and their legs in lithotomy. And the training fostered optimal birth positions. And during the last 6 months of our first training, the pilot first batch in 2017, I must say that one of the best moments were no women birthed on the back of the backs and the lithotomy. And that was very powerful. The midwives learned how to be compassionate and unlearn a lot of practices as well. They learned evidence-based practices. They learned how to identify perineal tears when it happened, how to suture, and how to deal with medical complications when needed, and timely referrals. They learned in keeping mother and baby together and respecting that golden hour. Practicing delayed cord clamping and facilitating breastfeeding, all in the public hospitals. They learned how to provide privacy, cover the women, gain consent, introduce themselves. Now, these things may seem normal, but this was taught and it's made such a big difference. The training in Telangana was supported by the government of Telangana, Fernandez, and the UNICEF partnerships. And to date, our first training with a 30 pilot batch. They are now based in 7 districts out of 11 facilities in Telangana, making a difference and really promoting normal births and reducing cesarean sections. The second cohort of the training are 50 nurses now training, again in the government facilities in Telangana. And the third cohort, another 136 nurses. So we are training the nurses into midwifery and training 11 midwifery educators in Telangana. And the training of the national midwifery educators with the government of India, Fernandez and WHO partnership, which was ceased during the pandemic, has now restarted again. So they're back doing that. And these midwives are from the 5 states across in India, and they're going to make such a change. If you look at the next slide, please. And as you can see, women are encouraged to have the birth partners and to actually birth off the bags and mobilize, because a lot of times during the latent labor, women are not allowed to mobilize. So this is a really powerful slide too. Next slide, please. And despite the fact that companions have been encouraged to come into institutions, most institutions do not have the privacy and do not let companions come in yet. But with the training, as you can see, this woman enjoyed her partner of her choice, and she wanted the husband to be there. So the rippling effects are happening, and women are now bringing in their birth companions of their choice, and they're eating and drinking. So it's a really exciting time for us. Next slide, please. I think we must have done our slides. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Indy. That's really, really inspiring. And yeah, I hope people will get in contact with you afterwards to follow up. So the final few slides then are just to wrap up this session. So the indicators that we will use in the sites that are going to be adopting the ICI 12 mother-baby-family steps are a whole range of indicators for each step. So for step 3, we have 2 specific indicators. One, that the facility provides training opportunities to develop this kind of knowledge, to develop knowledge and education about this approach to maternity care in all cadres, all groups of staff. And the second one, that women and families report that they actually got the information to make the decisions in line with this step and that their decisions were respected. So sites that take on the 12 steps, this is one of the things that we'll be measuring to see whether step 3 is actually in place or beginning to be enacted. Next slide, please. So take-home messages really. Step 3 integrates this mother-baby-family centered and values-based approach with the midwifery philosophy and competencies in a multidisciplinary context, as you've seen. That it values skills and behaviours that optimise physiological processes of well-being and that recognise and respond appropriately to pathology. So it's this both and, not either or, both physiology and pathology, both women and babies, both mothers and families, etc. Next bullet point, please. And that finally, that the people that are experiencing this encounter with maternity services, so women, birthing people, babies and families, must be at the centre and must authentically be at the centre. So not just a tick box approach. She was asked and she said, you know, yes, tick this box, but that authentically and genuinely the choices and decisions and needs of women, birthing people, babies and families are at the centre of what is done and said, and that this is a dynamic process where changes in choices can always be made and respected. Next slide, please. So this is just a set of acknowledgements to those who've been involved in the broader initiative and the specific presentation around step 3. And obviously the women, birthing people, partners and families and their babies. Next one, please. And this is just some resources that may be of interest or useful for people. Perhaps when you look back at this slide presentation, if you want to pick up some of these links, then obviously we hope that will be helpful for any sites that are thinking about putting step 3 into practice. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sue. And thank you to Anne, Evita, and Indy. All for your contributions to this session. I think it's been really fantastic and wonderful to have all of you involved today.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
So we have a few questions that we're asking after each of these, as we're addressing each of these steps. And one question that we're posing to all of our presenters for the whole series, because this is going to go to our facilities who are addressing the 12 steps, and many of them are looking at these steps for the first time. So for someone who is looking at step 3 for the first time, what advice would you give, or what would you advise them as far as the importance of addressing this step within a facility?
I wonder whether Evita and Indy might want to answer that first, because they've kind of done it.
Yeah. If I could speak from an obstetrician's perspective, Michelle, I think it's very important that we prepare the obstetricians about who a midwife is, what her role is, and what is she going to bring to the table. Because in India, particularly, where obstetricians are dependent on their paychecks for birthing women, this could be looked upon as a threat to their income and taking away what they are doing. But that needs to be, explained, particularly if we are bringing in midwifery care in a very strong medical environment. and identify obstetric champions so they can support midwives. The second thing is also talking about practice, evidence-based practices, because there are a lot of archaic things that we need to throw out of the window. But we realize with our experience, when we want to change something, they are willing to listen if there's data. So when we showed the data, just look at our episiotomy rate, can we reduce this? Primary cesareans being done for primibs, can we look at that data and review the indications? Then they begin to listen. That would be my approach from an obstetrician's perspective. Yes.
Yeah, and I wonder, Indy, if you could do it from the other point, from your perspective as well.
Yes, empowering midwives to question and to have the ability to talk about cases as colleagues with obstetricians. I think that is something that we are aspiring to do, and it's beginning to happen. So midwives and doctors are partners and not subordinate. I think that needs to change. And when midwives see best practices and very articulately talk about a case and doing it together, that we can wait for a while longer because she's doing really well and I'm completely confident. I'm listening to the fetal heart intelligently in intermittent auscultation. I feel that step needs to happen, and for obstetricians also to value this. And it's not that we are being disrespectful. We are, challenging best practices. And I feel that needs to be done. And when midwives also have a career progression and know that they can, go on to the step and become, a director or a consultant midwife or a specialist midwife, that there is future. I think if they see that there is future and understanding where midwifery is going to be taking. So it's not just about women, and it's also the newborn, empowering our midwives to be able to, to care for a newborn and to articulately, if she needs support, then it happens, keeping the mother and baby together, best practices, delayed cord clamping, and all of that is happening in the government hospitals. So it's not something that people say, oh no, this can only happen in private hospitals. So I feel that keeping the mother and the baby and the family is what Sue and Anne had also said in their presentation. I think that is really powerful. And to see other examples and other models on how midwives can actually support each other as well.
Mm. And Anne, I suppose, you're, thank you, Indy and Evita, you've got a kind of global perspective on this too. So
well, I do personally as well, of course, through practice for many years, that professional respect for midwives is enabling and of itself. So where midwives are seen as bringing something that is valuable and necessary, midwives will flourish. But we need to be paid too, and we need to be respected for the knowledge that we have, and that our knowledge is underpinned by science as well. And I think more and more we need to include other elements in our hand. Leadership is very important, because without leadership for midwives, amongst midwives, but also good leaders in our hospitals, make sure that we have managers who really understand about women-centered care, that it is more than just ticking the boxes, as you pointed out, Sue, that we need leadership. We need research. This is ongoing. We need to have research to underpin our practice and to continually strive to do better and to provide high-quality care. Yeah. And of course, we need women. We need groups of women. We need women who can lead themselves and to find their voices and say, look, this is what we want. Because what women want is really, really closely linked to their outcomes for birthing, and their ability to be mothers for the rest of their lives is very much linked to those first moments where she sees her baby.
Yeah, and I guess just to put my two pennyworth into agreeing with everything everyone said, it's also this, isn't it? It's a shift. The philosophy as a whole is a shift away from extreme risk aversion. So always assuming that the worst is going to happen, and treating every single woman and birthing person as if the worst is going to happen, towards a philosophy which says, generally speaking, this birth, this labor, this pregnancy, labor, birth, breastfeeding, whatever, postpartum, is likely to go well. So we have to support women and birthing people and the newborn in those physiological processes, while keeping an eye out for when things deviate from those processes. And if we can't work with the woman and the baby to bring those processes back into line again around physiology, that's when we need to actually collaborate as a multidisciplinary team to make sure that whatever happens subsequent to that has the best possible care. So I think it's all the things you've said, but it's also this overarching philosophical turn towards actually believing in women's bodies, believing that their bodies work and that babies' bodies work, and have done for millennia. And our job is to support the working of their bodies and their minds and their emotions, while being acutely attuned to when we need to offer, an increased kind of enhanced kind of input if there are issues that seem to be veering off the physiological track.
But I want to say as well here, Sue, that even women with highly complex pregnancies are still entitled to a satisfying experiance.
Absolutely.
So safety and satisfaction is really important.
Yeah.
And I've seen these births, when women are in an operating theatre, and there's everybody that they need there to help and keep them safe, and that woman is still satisfied with her experience.
Yeah.
And that is possible.
Yeah, and actually even beyond satisfaction, satisfaction is important, but we're also looking for joy and delight and, life-changing transformation, aren't we, as well? Those things should be part of what we're aiming for everybody, as you say, in any circumstances, whatever they choose and whatever they need. Yeah, I agree.
We're aiming for
Michelle.
I think these are all really, really good responses. But just sort of speaking to those last points, Sue, there was within the presentation the mention, sort of the footnote, that the final decision maker should always be the woman or the childbearing person, unless there is an overwhelming legal or medical reason why this can't be the case. And so, we didn't really dive into sort of what is that threshold. Is there any sort of clarification we can add there? Because
that would depend on different jurisdictions, legal jurisdictions. So in the UK, for example, the woman has an absolute right to override anything unless she's mentally unfit. And that doesn't mean she's not able to make a decision because she's in labour. That doesn't count. But if somebody is, if you like, the term used in the UK, sectioned under the Mental Health Act and cannot make decisions because of that state of mind, then what she says can be overruled in her interest and that of her baby. Or if she's unconscious and can't make decisions, then it can be. In other countries it's different, but in the UK the fetus has no legal rights. So that's why the maternal rights always override those of the fetus, unless she can't make a decision. That's not true in every country. So it will depend to an extent on there's a human rights question here, which is it should always be the woman, but the legal situation is different in different places.
In India, families play a big role, Michelle, in decision making. And I think this was one of the hardest things for Indy to understand coming from the UK. It could be the mother, or it could be the mother-in-law, who may make decisions. Even a simple thing like a woman wanting hydrotherapy and a water birth. If her husband or if the mother-in-law doesn't feel it's safe, she may not even encourage the woman to dream of something like this. So we have these cultural factors that we need to work with. Indy, you may want to add.
Yes, I do find that challenging. Having worked in the UK all of my life and the last 4 years in India, I do find that challenging, because sometimes I know that if I offered her hydrotherapy at this point, it'll really help her, and she wants it, but she still needs to have consent from the wider family, and often it's not just one. Like, you have to talk to at least 5 of them before doing it. And that I must say, I still struggle with, yes.
Thank you so much that's really helpful. And I think a good starting point for people who are thinking about the legal issues in their region. But I know also that we have some facilities where they have no midwives or very limited access to midwives. So what advice would you give to them if they want to incorporate a midwifery model of care, but they don't particularly have midwives normally accessible within their facility?
That might be a question for Anne, mightn't it? What do you think, Anne?
This is problematic, of course, because there aren't midwives everywhere. We wish there was. I think women would still be well placed to have a birth plan. And to approach whoever it is that is going to be providing care and have a discussion about all aspects of their birth plan to start with. I know also there is good evidence around supportive care in labour from somebody that the woman is trusting and familiar with, and that plan should be discussed with that person. And that could be your mother, your mother-in-law, your sister, your auntie, your friend, whoever it is. But to have a plan and to be prepared is really important.
So yeah, it is a difficult one though, absolutely, as Anne says. I don't know what do you think, Indian? I mean, does everybody have access to they don't have access to midwife, do they?
No, with us doing almost 1,000 births in a month, it's impossible for us to offer midwifery care to every woman. So what Indy and some of the obstetricians got together and put together an intrapartum module. Indy, would you like to talk about that? Because that has helped us a lot.
Yeah, we put up a module for our nurses that are in our rooms. It's not midwifery. We were very, very clear, but we had a module on compassionate care, sensitizing, how you can be supportive to the mother, how important touch, environment is, and also going through if she needs any like cardiographic monitoring, to be able to read that and to escalate it timely, but not to take over the role, so a mother is never left alone. And we don't have enough of doulas as well. We have 3 doulas, so we've trained what would you call them, Evita, the new entrants?
Assisted labor support.
Yeah, they've just done their O levels.
They finished their O levels. Yeah.
Yeah. So they finished their O levels and they've come to us, and we've trained them to support the mother, to be with the mother, to provide gentle massages and relaxation techniques, because we know we don't have enough of midwives, and we don't want mothers to be left alone.
Yeah, and presumably, that could be a step towards them actually training as midwives.
Exactly.
So, if you encourage people to start to engage at that level, then you're beginning to build your cadre of people who are going to end up being your midwives.
Yes.
So you can expand your midwifery workforce. Yeah, and I guess also it's like you were saying, Evita, as well. Again, there's difference between midwifery, being a midwife, and the midwifery philosophy. So that extension of the midwifery philosophy into the medical.
Yes. The other thing we're also insisting is to get the young residents to shadow a midwife and to be with a woman and watch, the joy of a natural birth. What's a physiological 3rd stage? And we want them to do it in their very first year, because we want obstetricians to go out of our organization understanding physiological birth midwifery philosophy. So hopefully they take it wherever they are in the country.
And actually, it's worked really well, because we've also had 3 of our consultants who have chose midwifery-led care and had water births as well. So so it's if a consultant endorses it, if the mothers are known to them, they actually watch a birth on all 4s, hands and knees, and they quietly watch and see what's happening, and they come out in awe saying, "We've never seen that."
That's wonderful. And I think this is a really good, specific example of giving people some ideas, hopefully, about what they can execute in their setting. I believe we're out of time, but I want to thank you all again for joining us today. This has been a really fantastic session, I think really critical to the entire 12 steps. So thank you so much for tackling it.
Thank you, Michelle.
I would like to thank all of you for joining us for step 3, routinely provide mother, baby, family, maternity care. I hope that you will continue with us to watch all 12 of these steps in safe and respectful mother, baby, family, maternity care with the International Childbirth Initiative, and to see you again soon. If you have questions about joining the initiative, please write to me at mtherrien@icichildbirth.org.